fantastic work. And they organized most of the events that we did in Taiwan over the next 10 days. And so we started out going up to Taroko Gorge, which is on the other side of the island. On the east side, it's less developed, and visiting an organic farm that was inspired by the spiritual practices, and it's really helped the local people to go vegetarian and go vegan, actually, and also to move to an organic way of living, which is essential, I think, for veganism, because chemicals and traps that they were using actually were killing a lot of the birds and wildlife. And so the Bliss and Wisdom group, which is Buddhist, based on the vegan principles of compassion for all life, really worked with the local farmers to transition to organic. So they would stop killing the wildlife and the birds and the other animals. So quite a few dogs, for example, in the community with only 3 legs because of the traps that were used to kill monkeys and other animals that were stealing the crops. So they also helped educate, actually, the farmers about spirituality and about the infinite life that we're all living, so they would have more compassion for other forms of life. So it's really an education of the farmers and of consumers. Buddhism has started a whole chain of organic, vegetarian, mainly vegan stores. When we were there in 2014, they had about 70 of these stores throughout Taiwan. Now they have 130. So it's very inspiring to see the work they're doing to help bring organic and vegan food throughout the whole island of Taiwan. From there, we went back to Taipei, the main headquarters, and we gave quite a few different lectures over the next 8 days. We worked also with Tzu Chi, which is another Buddhist group that's also promoting veganism and doing a lot to help disaster victims all over the world. So I gave a lecture at their headquarters in Taiwan that went very well and was also live streamed, I think, all over their movement. And then we gave a whole series of lectures and dialogues through the Bliss and Wisdom community. Some of them were at farms, like we went to another organic farm that was created in order to help people transition out of drug addiction and prison by working on organic farms and going vegan. So it's very inspiring to see that. And another was at an animal sanctuary that had been a goat dairy, and now it's a sanctuary for goats and for other animals, especially tortoises and birds and fishes. It had been also an aquaculture operation as well. So now it's a vegan sanctuary. And so it was great to give a lecture there and a dialogue with a local Buddhist monk, and then go one night to a restaurant and have a whole lecture and Q&A with young local activists. These were not so much Buddhists, so this was very interesting and very helpful, I think. And then we also gave a lecture and had a discussion at a beautiful school that had about 1,100 students. I think I'll do a whole presentation later, maybe on that school, but just fantastic to see the young people being so cared about, working hard in the school gardens, making, growing their own food. This is for basically kindergarten through 12th grade, and they don't use cell phones. They're really encouraged to have a spiritual life and to grow their own food organically, to be vegan. And it's just a very loving, beautiful school. I was very impressed with, like I say, about 1,100 students. So it was big and very impressive. So, and then we gave some concerts. Madeline joined me on the silver flute for the final concert at the end of our stay, which was just after Christmas. And Madeline also gave a vegan cooking class that was videotaped and will be televised. And we gave a talk at a vegan Rotary. The first vegan Rotary club in the world is in Taiwan, in Taipei. And they talked about their plans. They had very ambitious plans to create a vegan university. So it's very exciting to be with so many enthusiastic vegans. We were able to really spread the vegan message through the Bliss and Wisdom community, which is primarily vegan, but still a little bit vegetarian, still some dairy. So I felt like my purpose in many ways was to emphasize the devastating impacts of dairy products so that people really understand that clearly and go vegan fully. So I was very honored to be able to to work with these people. They're doing great work. The organic stores they have also have classrooms where they study the Buddhist teachings so they can deepen their understanding of life as a spiritual adventure where compassion and kindness and empathy and cooperation are the most important thing. They have these upstairs restaurants where for $3 you can get all-you-can-eat vegan food and you wash your own bowl. I mean, we just love it. It's good, healthy, organic vegan food for $3. All you can eat. It was really wonderful. We ate in many wonderful vegan restaurants in the entire tour. Met countless vegan activists, signed lots of books, and were able to hear from quite a few people that they had gone vegan due to the impact of the World Peace Diet, and also the impact of the local groups, the work that they're doing. We love to support and nurture local groups as best we can, because I think grassroots vegan activism on the planetary scale is the way forward. And so I just want to report back and say that in Southeast Asia and in Taiwan, there's a tremendous amount of energy and enthusiasm and cooperation promoting veganism. Taiwan, I still say, is the most vegan country in the world. It's really very inspiring to see how they're integrating vegan living into education, into healthcare, into government policy, into agriculture, and bringing organic, which is so important as well, and veganic actually too. And so there's tremendous progress being made, and we're very grateful, deeply grateful to all the activists who were so cooperative and helpful in our time there. So thank you all for your efforts, and that's the report about our 2019 lecture tour to Southeast Asia and Taiwan. It was enormously inspiring, and may the vegan movement continue to grow and blossom into 2020. Greetings, this is Dr. Will Tuttle, and I'm delighted to invite you to join us for an upcoming online presentation on holistic health through vegan living, connecting with the many benefits of a local, organic, whole food, plant-based way of eating and living. We're living in challenging times, and the ancient wisdom still holds true that a spiritual approach to living, connected with compassion for animals and caring for nature and for each other, is the way not only to transform ourselves, but to help transform our planet. Please join us. Looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you. lecture in Chiang Mai. We flew to Taiwan, and we were met in Taiwan at the airport by a whole cadre of vegan activists from the Bliss and Wisdom Foundation group, which is a Buddhist group that is just doing fantastic work. And they organized most of the events that we did in Taiwan over the next 10 days. And so we started out going up to Taroko Gorge, which is on the other side of the island. On the east side, it's less developed, and visiting an organic farm that was inspired by the spiritual practices, and it's really helped the local people to go vegetarian and go vegan, actually, and also to move to an organic way of living, which is essential, I think, for veganism, because chemicals and traps that they were using actually were killing a lot of the birds and wildlife. And so the Bliss and Wisdom group, which is Buddhist, based on the vegan principles of compassion for all life, really worked with the local farmers to transition to organic. So they would stop killing the wildlife and the birds and the other animals. There were quite a few dogs, for example, in the community with only 3 legs because of the traps that were used to kill monkeys and other animals that were stealing the crops. So they also helped educate, actually, the farmers about spirituality and about the infinite life that we're all living, so they would have more compassion for other forms of life. So it's really an education of the farmers and of consumers. Bliss and Wisdom has started a whole chain of organic, vegetarian, mainly vegan stores. When we were there in 2014, they had about 70 of these stores throughout Taiwan. Now they have 130. So it's very inspiring to see the work they're doing to help bring organic and vegan food throughout the whole island of Taiwan. From there, we went back to Taipei, the main headquarters, and we gave quite a few different lectures over the next 8 days. We worked also with Tzu Chi, which is another Buddhist group that's also promoting veganism and doing a lot to help disaster victims all over the world. So I gave a lecture at their headquarters in Taiwan that went very well, and was also live streamed, I think, all over their movement. And then we gave a whole series of lectures and dialogues through the Bliss and Wisdom community. Some of them were at farms, like we went to another organic farm that was created in order to help people transition out of drug addiction and prison by working on organic farms and going vegan. So it's very inspiring to see that. And another was at an animal sanctuary that had been a goat dairy, and now it's a sanctuary for goats and for other animals, especially tortoises and birds and fishes. It had been also an aquaculture operation as well. So now it's a vegan sanctuary. And so it was great to give a lecture there and a dialogue with a local Buddhist monk, and then go one night to a restaurant and have a whole lecture and Q&A with young local activists. These were not so much Buddhist, so this was very interesting and very helpful, I think. And then we also gave a lecture and had a discussion at a beautiful school that had about 1,100 students. I think I'll do a whole presentation later, maybe on that school, but just fantastic to see the young people being so cared about, working hard in the school gardens, making, growing their own food. This is for basically kindergarten through 12th grade, and they don't use cell phones. They're really encouraged to have a spiritual life and to grow their own food organically, to be vegan. And it's just a very loving, beautiful school. I was very impressed with, like I say, about 1,100 students. So it was big and very impressive. So, and then we gave some concerts. Madeline joined me on the silver flute for the final concert at the end of our stay, which was just after Christmas. And Madeline also gave a vegan cooking class that was videotaped and will be televised. And we gave a talk at a vegan Rotary. The first vegan Rotary club in the world is in Taiwan, in Taipei. And they talked about their plans. They had very ambitious plans to create a vegan university. So it was very exciting to be with so many enthusiastic vegans. We were able to really spread the vegan message through the Bliss and Wisdom community, which is primarily vegan. but still a little bit vegetarian, still some dairy. So I felt like my purpose in many ways was to emphasize the devastating impacts of dairy products so that people really understand that clearly and go vegan fully. So I was very honored to be able to work with these people. They're doing great work. The organic stores they have also have classrooms where they study the Buddhist teachings so they can deepen their understanding of life as a spiritual adventure where compassion and kindness and empathy and cooperation are the most important thing. They have these upstairs restaurants where for $3 you can get all-you-can-eat vegan food and you wash your own bowl. I mean, we just love it. It's good, healthy, organic vegan food for $3. All you can eat. It was really wonderful. We ate in many wonderful vegan restaurants in the entire tour. Met countless vegan activists, signed lots of books, and were able to hear from quite a few people that they had gone vegan due to the impact of the World Peace Diet, and also the impact of the local groups, the work that they're doing. We love to support and nurture local groups as best we can because I think grassroots vegan activism on the planetary scale is the way forward. And so I just want to report back and say that in Southeast Asia and in Taiwan, there's a tremendous amount of energy and enthusiasm and cooperation promoting veganism. Taiwan, I still say, is the most vegan country in the world. It's really very inspiring to see how they're integrating vegan living into education, into healthcare, into government policy, into agriculture, and bringing organic, which is so important as well, and veganic actually too. So there's tremendous progress being made, and we're very grateful, deeply grateful to all the activists who were so cooperative and helpful in our time there. So thank you all for your efforts, and that's the report about our 2019 lecture tour to Southeast Asia and Taiwan. It was enormously inspiring, and may the vegan movement continue to grow and blossom into 2020. Greetings, this is Dr. Will Tuttle, and I'm delighted to invite you to join us for an upcoming online presentation on holistic health through vegan living, connecting with the many benefits of a local, organic, whole food, plant-based way of eating and living. We're living in challenging times, and the ancient wisdom still holds true that a spiritual approach to living, connected with compassion for animals and caring for nature and for each other, is the way not only to transform ourselves, but to help transform our planet. Please join us. Looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
欢迎来到科园新生活蔬食新力量的单元。今天的专题主讲课程是由来自美国的威尔塔托博士所主讲，全人健康的 Vegan 生活。我先做一个自我介绍，我叫 Ruby 王良玉，我平常是一个口译员，也是一位瑜伽老师。
我是 Gordon 于金龙，我是一个环保永续的工作者。
Gordon， 刚刚我看到那个介绍影片啊，你出现在塔托博士的身边非常的多次。我想要了解一下你们两位认识的因缘以及他对你的影响。
当塔托博士第一次来到台湾2014年的时候呢，我的太太是他的口译，那我当太太的司机，所以就认识了他。那他在慈济医院演讲的时候的第一句话震撼到我了。他说：“这是我39年来第一次到医院，不是来看病，而是来演讲。”哇，那时候我觉得好吃惊哦。那很专心的听他的演讲，那开始思考，这个和平饮食真正的意义。5天结束之后呢， 在他离开台湾的前一天晚上，那我就告诉塔托博士说，感谢你震撼人心的演讲，那从今天起直到永远，我要成为一个 vegan。哇，塔托博士高兴地把我抱起来。那我本来是一个很喜欢吃肉的荤食者，从那一天到现在，我就没有再吃过一口肉了。这是我跟塔托博士相知跟相惜的这个因缘。
哇哦，谢谢工人的分享啊！事实上，在生活中，身为一个见证者，我的确看到 Gordon 从那一刻开始，这8年多以来，没有再吃过一口肉，也没有用任何的皮制品。他不但身体力行，成为一个纯素生活者，他也更致力于他的环保以及永续的推广。这让我领悟到，原来一个饮食的选择可以跟这个一生的志业紧紧的相扣。事实上呢，现在塔托博士也来到我们线上了，我们要不要开一下镜头，跟他挥个手呢？已经上线的同学，Dr. Tuttle and the dear Madeline, would you mind wave and say hello to everybody online? Yeah, thank you, thank you. 那因为时间很宝贵，就由我来简单的介绍一下今天的流程。如果可以的话，待会我们会投影片。等一下呢，我们会播放一个我们塔托博士精心事先预录的影片，9点到9点50。那在这个影片的播放过程当中呢，欢迎各位，因为有中英文的字幕，所以欢迎各位可以做一点笔记，然后方便大家好吸收。那你也可以一直把你的镜头打开，因为我们会把你努力学习的画面呢，随时的送播到博士那一边。在10点到10点45的时候，我们会有一个即席的线上互动的时间，是 Q&A 的时间。那您可以在聊天室或是留言板提出你的问题，透过工作人员主持人 Gordon 会将提问给到塔托博士，塔托博士回答以后，会由我做一个简单的翻译。那么现在让我再一次的介绍一下塔托博士，特别是第一次参加的学员，由我来介绍一下。塔托博士呢，他来自美国，他是一位国际知名的纯素推广先驱。事实上，他推广纯素的运动已经超过45年的时间。他原本是在大学任教，那也是一位钢琴家，也是一位作曲家。那有感于纯素生活原来对于个人的生命社会文化以及全球的生态息息相关，他于是毅然而然的辞去他的教职，那与他的太太 Madeline 一心专心的以推广纯素为志业。事实上，他跟 Madeline 呢有18年的时间没有房子，是住在一个拖车上，在全美各处巡回演讲。他著名的著作《The World Peace Diet》和平饮食，事实上也蝉联在美国的亚马逊书店畅销书籍的第1名很长的一段时间。那这次受到慈心基金会以及科园新生活的邀请，塔托博士再一次的为台湾的观众演讲。不过因为防疫的缘故这次改成线上的进行。就如同塔托博士温暖的琴声一般，他的演讲一定能够深深的打动你。现在就让我们一起共同来参与，在这母亲节的前夕，我们一起共同的聆听塔托博士这个精彩的演讲。
Greetings, this is Dr. Will Tuttle, and I'm delighted to be joining you, dear friends, for this presentation on holistic health through vegan living. So I'm joining you from sunny California. It's a beautiful day here, and I'm delighted to be able to talk about these ideas because I think this is really the most important thing we can be focusing on nowadays, is how to thrive and how to not only transform our own health and our lives, but also to help our society to transform as well. Madeline and I have visited Taiwan many times over the years, and it's always been a very inspiring period of time for us. And one of the things that I love about the Taiwanese people is the connection with nature that I feel there, and also the connection with music, with animals, and with spirituality, the importance of meditation and quieting the mind. So I'd like to begin my presentation by playing a short piece of original piano music that was inspired by our time in Taiwan a couple of years ago. And we had the opportunity to visit some beautiful places, the Taroko Gorge, and also some farms that had formerly been using pesticides and killing local animals to protect the crops, and are now organic and much more in harmony with nature and cruelty-free. And this is really the key, I think, is to connect with the ancient wisdom of nonviolence. And so we were inspired by these examples of healthy vegan living, organic, whole food, plant-based ways of eating and living, and the pioneering work that's been done by groups in Taiwan to help raise consciousness about the interconnectedness of all life, that we're all interconnected, and that when we honor and respect the waters of the earth and the trees and flowers, the animals, each other, and our own true nature, then we begin to come into alignment with our inner wisdom. All right, so enjoy this piece of music. I'd like to start with this and dedicate it to the healing of all of our relations and to creating a field of awareness and consciousness that we can always come back to and remember the beauty that surrounds us all the time. It's been really wonderful. As I look out the window right here over the piano, I see the lake where I took a swim this morning. And I know that in the lake there are fishes swimming around and otters and other birds and other animals that all depend on the lake. And this whole web of life is really beautiful to contemplate. So enjoy the music and let's take a few minutes together to give thanks for this precious human life that we have. thank you for joining together in the meditation with music and giving thanks for our precious opportunity that we have of a human life, a human birth, for this opportunity to celebrate our lives on this beautiful and abundant planet, and to every day learn and grow and contribute our own unique piece of the puzzle that we have, the unique gifts that we can bring to our society, and to help create a more compassionate and sustainable and free and abundant life for all living beings. That's really the purpose, I think, of this presentation, is to connect with our inner wisdom, and I'm sure I align very much with your purpose as you're listening, to unfold the highest wisdom in your life and the highest joy and freedom and creativity, to have a joyful life that you can share with other people and to share with your children and grandchildren, to help create a world of peace and healing and joy and freedom for future generations. So the underlying idea in all of this is the idea that as we sow, so shall we reap. Whatever we put out eventually comes back. And veganism is really just a modern new word for an ancient spiritual teaching at the very heart of the Buddhist teaching, ahimsa, or nonviolence. The idea that we have 5 precepts, for example, that we follow as the foundation of our practice of the spiritual life: not to kill, not to steal, not to lie, not to sexually abuse others, and not to take any alcohol or drugs which are harmful or confuse the mind, or to cause others to do that as well. And so these 5 basic precepts are based on ahimsa, based on the idea that the more we act in a way that is kind and loving and caring for other living beings, the more it comes back to us as health and joy and happiness and freedom. And the more we imprison others, harm them, cause them to be sick and unhappy, the more we get sick and unhappy and lose our freedom. So we see this happening in our world during these challenging times quite a bit. We see a lot of war, conflict in the world, and we see disease and fear and so forth. But we also see a lot of people caring, learning more about what real health is all about. So that's what we like to talk about right now, is health. Our physical health, the health of this physical vehicle, the physical body that we are operating. It's like a vehicle, like a car we're driving. We are not the car, right? When I get into the car, I'm not the car. And the same thing is true with the physical body. We are not the physical body. We are the being who is functioning through the physical body. So our consciousness is very important. The food that we eat is also very important, because this physical body is a biochemical organism. And so food is also a biochemical reality. And so when we bring whatever foods we bring in to our temple, the temple of our physical body, which is sacred, in order for us to meditate and attain enlightenment and to love and bless the world, to bring in food that supports that. That's the key thing. And so animal-based foods always are the result of killing. And it's obvious with the flesh of animals that we have to kill them in order to get their flesh, whether it's cows or pigs or chickens or fish, whatever animals they are, we kill them and then we eat their muscle tissue, and that involves killing them. Nobody really wants to eat animals that have died naturally, maybe animals that have been hit by a car or something. It's kind of disgusting. We try to stay away from that. We wouldn't go up to it and start eating it. That shows that we're not naturally carnivorous. But there are other products from animals like dairy products and eggs in which it doesn't look like we have to kill the animals to get those products. But when we look more deeply and we exercise our wisdom eye, open our wisdom eye and look deeply and open our compassion eye, we see that they also cause killing. That the dairy industry, the egg industry are based on dominating and exploiting animals, especially female animals, and stealing from them their milk and their eggs and their offspring, their babies, and then killing them. So it always involves killing, and it involves even more killing in many ways because we have to kill the babies typically. On any egg-laying operation, for example, there's going to be half the babies will be females, half will be males. All the males are useless, and they're usually killed right away as soon as they're born. As soon as they know they're males, they grind them up alive or suffocate them. So it's a tremendous amount of killing in the egg industry for these male chicks, and then of course the females are killed when their production of eggs declines, and the same thing is true with dairy cows or goats. They're impregnated over and over again on what is referred to as a rape rack in the industry, and then their babies are, almost all of them are killed right away, except maybe one female that will be a slave on the dairy to replace her mother. So when we look deeply, we see killing, we see stealing, we see lying because we're deceiving them, we're abusing them sexually, and we're forcing drugs on them typically as well. So we're breaking all 5 precepts with meat, dairy products, and eggs. And the good news underlying all of this is that it's completely unnecessary, that all of us are designed to thrive and get all the nutrients that we need to be healthy and to celebrate our lives here without causing any animals to suffer. And this is a great gift. This is really good news. We don't have to do this. There's no reason. I've been a vegan now since 1980. That's 42 years, and here I am. And I'm not the only one. There's literally millions of people like me who have been vegan, who don't eat any meat, dairy products, or eggs for many decades and are healthier than the average population. I think I'm much, much healthier than people my age. And I still have not gone to a doctor since the early 1970s, so almost 50 years, and or to a drugstore to get something to be healthy, because I think when we live our lives in alignment with the universal principles of health, then our vehicle, the body, will respond positively to that. So that means eating an organic, whole food, plant-based diet. And organic is very important because pesticide, herbicide, and fungicide residues and chemical fertilizer residues destroy the health of ecosystems. They also attack our own ecosystem. The microbiome, which we have inside of our body, is made up of a community of trillions of bacteria. So if I'm eating foods that have pesticides on them and herbicides and fungicides, it attacks the microbiome living within me that I depend on to be healthy. Scientists now understand this, that we have more bacteria cells in our body than we have of our own cells. And our health is dependent on them. And so one of the great things to understand is that eating an organic, whole food, plant-based diet naturally helps us to have a healthy, happy community of bacteria inside of us, the microbiome. It needs really lots of fiber, lots of polypeptides, which come from starches. So grains like rice and wheat and corn and millet and quinoa and so forth are very healthy for us. Beans also, legumes are very healthy. Vegetables, fruits, nuts, grains, seeds, all these are very healthy. They build up a healthy microbiome which digests our food, and it's directly connected through the vagus nerve with our brain which is responsible in many ways for our mood. And so it's pretty well understood now that if we're eating foods that are making our microbiome unhappy, and those would be foods that are not organic, foods that are processed, foods that have meat, dairy, or eggs in them, all of those harm and attack the microbiome. So we don't have a very healthy ecology inside of us. And when that happens, we feel irritable and upset and anxious and afraid. And the vagus nerve is sending these kinds of signals to us, to our brain, and we're not getting the positive emotions and the hormones that are naturally created that make us feel happy, because we have a happy community and we're not causing suffering to other beings. We're actually doing the best we can to support farmers who are working in harmony with nature and not killing animals and not killing wildlife. So all of this creates a field of energy, outside of us and within us, both. It's a field, and it's all interconnected. So it's very important to cultivate a holistic understanding of health. One of the things that I've discovered in my 40 years of research is that in Western medicine especially is very reductionistic. Western science in general is reductionistic. It works by reducing wholes into the parts and then analyzing the parts to try to understand the whole. But if we look at the whole, we can understand the parts. And I think that's the important thing. It's a much more integrative way of understanding, and it's the way of the future. The reductionistic method works very well for corporations who would like to maximize their profits and maximize disease. So it's very important for us when we care about our health to question the official narratives in our society that promote reductionism and that promote toxic chemicals being spewed onto the land or taking toxic chemicals. I have never taken any drugs of any kind in 50 years. No drugs from the drugstore or anything, or alcohol or anything like that. So I think if we can live our lives to minimize the amount of toxic substances, try to make sure that our food is clean, our water and the air that we're breathing is clean. And that means eating a whole food, organic, plant-based diet, because the pesticide and herbicide residues pollute the water and pollute the air and the soil and the food, and it's all interconnected. So eating lower on the food chain, we use much less land. That's a very important point also, that when we eat animal foods, the animals have to eat a lot of grain. A lot of corn and soy and alfalfa are fed to cows, pigs, chickens, factory farmed fish. And that causes more pesticide, herbicide, and fungicide residues, more destruction of ecosystems, more destruction of the climate and of aquifers, and the destruction of soil and so forth, killing of wildlife. So again, according to all of the scientists who study this, for example, the National Academy of Sciences here in the United States estimates that someone eating a plant-based diet uses only between 1/12 and 1/15 of the amount of land as someone eating a standard Western diet. So you can feed 12 to 15 people eating a plant-based diet on the amount of land to feed one person eating a standard Western diet. That's a wonderful good news. We can radically reduce the amount of toxins and the amount of destruction that we're causing in the world by moving to a whole food, organic, plant-based diet. And the healthier the earth is, the healthier we will be. Right now we're cutting down rainforests unsustainably, 4 acres per second. Scientists say that the whole rainforest of the Amazon could collapse within the next few years because so much of it is being destroyed to grow soybeans to feed to imprisoned cows and pigs and chickens and fish. And many of the fish and cows and so forth, all of these are used for dairy and eggs and meat. Many of it is exported from South America to North America to Asia and to Europe. So this whole system is interconnected, so it's vitally important that we as individuals do our part to minimize the amount of violence we're causing to the ecosystems. That way we will be healthier and they will be healthier. So getting back to the microbiome in our body, it's important to realize that organic, whole food, plant-based way of eating makes a healthy biome for our body, but also a healthy microbiome for the soil. We really want to help build up the soil, and it's the same thing. Chemicals and pesticides destroy the microbiome of the soil, kill bacteria, destroy the mycelium, the mushroom underneath the soil, the fungus web, and this is very devastating to the long-term health of our planet. So it's wonderful, I think, to learn these things and then to do the best we can as individuals to work in harmony with nature. Every day, Madeline and I go out into we have a food forest on the other side of the house over here. We have 70 fruit and nut trees. We have 5 beds of vegetables, and we have many bushes of berries like blueberries and blackberries and raspberries and strawberries and lots of herbs, and growing together in a community, a food forest that creates a lot of food, and it creates a habitat for the bees and the birds and other beneficial insects. And so each one of us can be aware of the impact that we're having on ecosystems, that the outer ecosystem and the inner ecosystem ultimately are mirrors. They mirror each other. The healthier the outer is, the healthier the inner, the healthier the inner, the healthier the outer. If I get sick because I'm eating toxic food, and now I need drugs for heart disease or drugs for diabetes or drugs for cancer, then those drugs, which are toxic chemicals, they go through me. They go out into the water, and they go into the water and they harm fish, and they harm ecosystems, insects and birds. Poisons, there's something called the circle of poisons, and it goes around. The more poisons we create, the more end up in the nature, end up in us, go through us, end up in nature again. So the earth is always trying to heal. The earth is always trying to cleanse these poisons. But the best thing is for us not to take out our wallets and pay for foods and products that encourage more poisons to be created. And our body is the same way. Our body is always trying to cleanse. This is an important point to understand about health. If we want to have a holistic approach to health through vegan living, it's to understand that our body is our best friend. It's always doing the best it can to heal and detoxify whatever we're eating and drinking and breathing. So if we're bringing in toxins, our body's going to do the best it can to purify. That's going to look like a sickness very often. So if we take in too many toxins, then what happens? Very often we'll get a runny nose, a sore throat, a headache, diarrhea, a skin rash. These are all methods that our body uses to expel toxins. We're breathing out toxins. Actually, we have, as you know, probably 5 main ways of expelling toxins. One is through our bowels, through our urine, through our skin, through our sinuses, and through our lungs. And 80% of all of our toxins actually are released through the lungs, through breathing. So it's very important that we breathe consciously. And I think as people who are interested in meditation and in spirituality, we know the importance of breathing, of being aware of our breathing, of breathing consciously, of inhaling with gratitude, with exhaling and sending out love. Our breath is a great gift, and it's very important that we breathe consciously and fully and deeply and learn to breathe properly. Just like we need to learn to eat properly, to eat whole, organic, plant-based foods without a lot of oil and sugar and salt that are whole. We also need to learn to create whole breaths, to breathe all the way in, deep into our abdomen, and to exhale and relax and release into the present moment. Our breath is our deepest connection with nature. We're breathing all the time. We're exchanging energy. We're exchanging oxygen, not only with nature, but with people around us. We're breathing together. So the more we're aware of our own breathing, the more we're aware of the breathing of other people, the more we're in harmony with each other. We get into a rhythm. And the more we can be conscious of our breathing, like in meditation, just be aware of our breathing, that will naturally help our mind to stabilize. And when we're eating, it's very important to be aware of our breathing. As we breathe in, we chew our food mindfully with gratitude, because it's not just what we're eating, it's how we're eating. It's very important. If I'm eating with a sense of gratitude, a sense of connection with the beauty around me, the mountains, the sky, the lakes and rivers and streams, the trees, the flowers, the birds, all the animals, we're all eating, right? We're all consuming sunlight and air and water. And life is feeding on life. And so this is a beautiful thing to understand, that we do not have to engage in any violence towards any animals, that all the nutrients that we need to thrive and celebrate are given to us by plants. So if we hear people say, well, I'm eating meat because I want to get protein, or I'm eating dairy because I want to get calcium, we have to remember that the animal flesh and the milk, the calcium and the protein in those, it came from plants. Everything comes from plants. Animals never make anything. Animals never make any nutrient. The nutrients are all made by plants through photosynthesis. So plants create, through photosynthesis, lipids. And lipids become essential fatty acids, omega-6, omega-3, omega-9, and so forth, that we need to be healthy. But we can get those fats, those essential healthy fats, directly from plants. Whole plants is the best. Refined oils are not so healthy, like olive oil. It's better to eat the plants directly. Eat nuts and seeds and so forth, avocados and so forth. The plants also create starches. And starches really are the complex carbohydrates that our bodies are designed to run on. So this is very important to understand. There's no carbohydrates in animal-based foods, basically. They don't. The flesh of animals and so forth don't have carbohydrates, but carbohydrates burn clean to carbon dioxide and water. That's it. So when we eat carbohydrates, starches like rice and wheat and potatoes and sweet potatoes and squashes and grains, we are getting mainly carbohydrates, which burn clean, and we just release that through our breathing and so forth. This is a healthy fuel that our bodies are designed to run on, and our brains actually run on glucose, like our muscles run on glucose, which is what starch is metabolized to glucose. And our brain, even though it's very small, it's only a very small amount of weight, it uses a large amount of energy, and it runs on glucose. So that's why it's very important to eat plenty of starch if you want to have good energy for the brain. And so plant-based foods create and provide us with the essential fatty acids, with the starch, the energy, the carbohydrates that we need to thrive. And remember, simple carbohydrates, processed foods like white flour and white rice and so forth, and white sugar, those are not healthy because they've been so processed. They're somewhat toxic. But whole grains are very healthy, and these are the complex carbohydrates we're designed for. Plants also create the amino acids that form all the proteins, right? So you know that there's 20 amino acids, and that they're all created by plants, none by animals. And so if we're eating plants, we're getting those amino acids in the proper form. Our body will take those amino acids and create over 1 million different proteins. And when we get the proteins from plants, it's much cleaner than if we get it from animals. So this idea that animal protein is somehow healthier or higher quality is completely wrong. It's erroneous, because animal proteins, like the muscles of animals, or especially dairy products, the main protein in cow's milk, for example, casein, is a gigantic molecule. But all animal protein is very large molecules of protein that are unwieldy and difficult for our bodies to break down. Our body will break them down. We have to break them down. But in the process of doing that, we create a lot of acid, and that's unhealthy. The hospitals are filled because of people having excess acid in their body, acidified tissues, acidified blood. That leads to kidney disease, liver disease, arthritis, cancer, breast, prostate, and colon cancer. All kinds of problems come from eating foods that create acid in our system, and that's high animal protein foods. Plant-based proteins also create acid, because basically what you have, foods are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Those are the carbohydrates, and you add either nitrogen, usually nitrogen or sulfur, and then you create your proteins from nitrogen and sulfur. That creates the amino acids that our body needs to be healthy, and we need proteins. But too much protein is not a good idea. It creates a lot of acid. Even too much plant-based protein is not a good idea. So some people, when they go vegan, they're eating huge quantities of tofu or tempeh or something because they want to get enough protein. The studies are very clear on this, that the longest lived, healthiest people in the world are people who eat a high complex carbohydrate, low protein diet. Right? So that's a basic plant-based diet. There's plenty of protein already in rice, in beans, in potatoes, in fruits, nuts, and seeds. There's plenty of protein. We don't have to combine it in any special way. Just eat plants. If you want to have a little tofu or a little tempeh now and then, that's fine, but we don't need to feel that we need to get a lot of protein. Unless you're a really hardcore weightlifter doing a huge amount of weightlifting, you'll get plenty of protein on a plant-based diet. And if you are a hardcore weightlifter, you can get plenty of protein on a plant-based diet. Also, there's many of the champion weightlifters are actually vegans. So it's just good to understand this basic thing about a holistic approach to nutrition. Sees food as a symphony of different nutrients. There's so many nutrients. And so it's essential to understand that they come from plants. All the fatty acids, the proteins, the starch, and the fiber. There's no fiber in animal-based foods. One of the most important nutrients we can ever eat is fiber. Fiber is vital to a healthy microbiome, to a healthy intestinal tract. So eating lots of fiber, lots of raw foods, it's a good idea. Eating quite a bit of raw foods, that provides good fiber to keep us regular and keep our intestine in healthy shape. So all of these things, and all the minerals and all the vitamins, they all come from plants, right? So it's important to understand that animals don't provide anything. Plants take in the minerals from the soil, and we get them from plants. They create the vitamins, and many what are called phytonutrients, which are plant-based nutrients. There's many of them. So there's literally, we have no idea how many phytonutrients there are. Scientists are always discovering more and more. Beta-carotene and lycopene, and so many that come from especially brightly colored fruits and vegetables are filled with these very important phytonutrients. So that's the thing to understand. There is always two nutrients that people are confused about, which I'll just mention briefly. One is vitamin D. It's very important to get plenty of vitamin D, and we get that from the sun. Our sun is basically giving us vitamin D. Our skin will convert sun into vitamin D. And if we're not getting enough sun, then maybe it's a good idea to get some kind of a supplement. So it's good to be aware of vitamin D, but that comes from the sun. It's actually a hormone that our bodies create. And then the other is vitamin B12, which is made by bacteria, actually. And there are many nutritionists who say that we can get enough B12 if we're eating a very healthy, organic, plant-based diet, that our intestine will create the B12. The bacterial community will create the B12 that we need to be healthy. But since B12 is a very serious vitamin, you don't want to be deficient, and it's very inexpensive, and you don't have to worry about taking too much. It's a good idea. I think everyone pretty much agrees to take a vitamin B12 supplement. Whether you're a vegan or not, taking a vitamin B12 supplement is a good idea. This way we have plenty of that. And so that's really the only supplement that Madeline and I usually take. It's a little B12 to make sure we have enough B12. But we get a lot of sun, and you know, you can eat a little dirt. There's bacteria in the dirt, and you get your B12 that way. And I think we do that with our garden anyway. But our bodies are fantastic at making use and recycling nutrients that are needed. So it's important to just give our bodies healthy food. And organic, whole food, plant-based foods are the best way to create a healthy microbiome, to have a healthy whole organism, to have lots of energy. Starch is really the food that gives us glucose, which is the energy that we need, the basic sugar that runs all the muscles in the brain, in our brain. So if we eat animal-based food, it's very difficult to get glucose out of that. We can, we'll do it. Our body's amazing, but our body is saying, oh, I hope you don't do that again. So the sooner we move over to an organic, plant-based way of eating and living, the better from the point of view of our body. The better it is, of course, for the ecosystems, for the environment, because animal agriculture is so wasteful of resources, and we're just completely strip mining the ocean of fish now, feeding fish to cows and pigs and chickens so they give more milk and give more eggs. So we're feeding fish to all these animals that would never eat fish. We're destroying soil. We're cutting down trees that create oxygen, that stabilize the climate. I mean, all these things are interconnected. It's well understood now that if we're concerned about climate change, the most important thing we can do is to move to a plant-based way of eating, and that will help the forest to regenerate again. So there's many aspects to this. Organic, whole food, plant-based way of eating. We don't want to be eating pesticide, herbicide, and fungicide residues, and we don't want to be eating processed foods that have preservatives and artificial flavors and artificial colors. These are all chemicals that are toxic. And we eat them, they harm our body, and then they go through us, and they go into the environment, into the water, and keep doing harm. So just important to see that we are like a being that's passing things through us. And the more we can pass through us something that is bringing love and healing into the world, the better it is for everybody, for ourselves included. So that's not true just for food, but it's true for like what we're reading, what we're consuming. If we're reading books of inspiration and watching things that are helpful and uplifting, then when we speak to other people, we can enlighten them, we can share with them the truth. So it's important to do the best we can to actually use our intuition to discriminate truth from lies and falsehood. Because if we take in lies and we repeat lies because we don't know any better, that's harmful. So we are responsible to tell the difference between truth and falsehood. And it's difficult nowadays because we are being bombarded with information all the time. And a lot of it is misinformation. And we have very powerful industries that control the media, like the meat industry, the dairy egg industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the big banks, the petroleum industries. They have a lot of money, and they use that money to control the narrative. And they make money on sick people. They don't make any money on healthy people, right? I haven't given any money to the pharmaceutical medical industry in 50 years, right? So they don't like the fact that when people are healthy, they can't make any money. But that ultimately is the best for everyone. If we can stay healthy and be healthy, it's a great gift that we give to our loved ones. They don't have to take care of us, to future generations, to ecosystems, to animals. And we save money, right? I haven't had to pay any health insurance in 50 years, right? So we save money, we can use that money, we can donate it to help feed hungry people, or we can help build communities. So it's very important to build communities of sanity, build communities of kindness, to educate our children, to question where their food's coming from, to look deeply, to question the news that we hear on the television set, and to be like Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, to listen deeply and to hear the cries of the world, to listen deeply and hear what's actually happening, to look deeply and see what's actually happening, to feel deeply beyond just the surface to what's really going on in the world and in ourselves, and understand that health is multidimensional. It's connected to the health of the ecosystems around us, the flowers and the birds and the animals, to the people around us, the society, to create a healthy society based on loving kindness, on justice, equality, not forcing people to stab animals all day, not forcing people to sexually abuse animals all day. We don't want to ever do that. We don't want to cause others to do work that brings out the worst in them. So milk, dairy, eggs, meat, fish, all these things cause people to harden their hearts and be violent and engage in violence. That harms them, it harms animals, but it harms us. We cause it. If I take out my wallet and pay for it, that's where I commit the crime, actually, in actually paying. It's not eating it, it's paying for it. If I eat it, then I'm eating the violence, which is not a good idea. It's terrible to build this beautiful temple with bricks of misery and violence. So we don't want to do that, of course. So the whole idea is to not pay for violence, not to eat violence, not to teach others to do the same thing, but rather to pay for kindness, to support people who are working to build up healthy food systems, and to share these ideas, to share this information, to teach our children about these universal principles, that whatever goes out comes back, and that ultimately what we are is infinite and eternal. In the Buddhist tradition we talk about the Buddha nature. This is the nature of compassion and peace and harmony and love and kindness and mercy and caring. And that when we cultivate this in our heart and we look with eyes that see the beauty in others, that helps us to see it in ourselves. And when we see it in ourselves, then we see it in others as well. And so I think this gets to the root of health, really. To have a healthy physical body, it's important to eat healthy food, to eat it mindfully, to breathe deeply, to drink pure water, and to meditate, to take time every day to connect with the silence, and even during the day to connect with silence, to connect with the pure potential out of which all appearances arise from moment to moment. There's emptiness. There's the pure potential out of which everything manifests. And to understand that what we are is that pure potential. Every thought arises, and we can allow thoughts to come and go and cultivate thoughts of kindness and caring, and allow our mind to be quiet. And when we connect with silence, we're connecting with the source of life, with our true nature. And this is really where the health of the physical body begins to be fed, because the more we come into peace, inner peace, a deep sense of inner peace, because we know that what we are was never born and will never die. We have nothing to fear. And nothing in the physical world can touch us. It's like the sky. The sky is infinite and eternal, and the clouds that go by can never harm the sky. And what people say to us, if they criticize us or praise us, it's like the clouds and the sky. So praise and blame, all these different things, pain and pleasure, the 8 winds, none of these things can really ultimately affect us. So this inner peace connects health in our physical body. It connects cleanliness in our physical body. Our body naturally starts cleaning out. And so we may get, from time to time, we may get what appears to be sick. Oh, I get sick, you know. If I get sick, it's like if I get a sore throat or a runny nose, it doesn't happen very often, but if it does, I say, great, I'm cleaning house. That's great. I would never go to get some kind of a drug to stop that. That'd be like, you know, like if I'm cleaning the house and someone says, oh, you're cleaning the house, but it's making a mess. Of course it's making a mess. I'm cleaning out all this old stuff. You know, I wouldn't want to stop it. The house would become more and more of a mess. That's what happens. We keep taking drugs and we don't allow our body to heal and cleanse. We keep pushing it down. Keep taking medications for headaches or for runny nose or whatever it is. Then our body gets filled with more toxins, and at some point we get cancer. It gets worse and worse. So let the body cleanse, and build harmony, build internal harmony, and harmony in our relationships. That's very important. I think a lot of people are sick because they're angry or they're frustrated with their parents from 50 years ago or 20 years ago. Just letting it go. Have love and understanding for everyone. Do the best we can to be loving and kind in our relationships with the people close to us. That's what veganism really is. It's being loving and kind, not just to cows and pigs and chickens, but also to friends, neighbors, and co-workers around us. To cultivate a sense of understanding, knowing that everyone is suffering, really. So those are the main ideas I'd like to share with you in this time we have together. I really appreciate the opportunity to look deeply into what veganism actually is as a spiritual practice. It's not merely doing the best I can to be healthy for myself. It's really being a field of health, a field of healing, a field of joy and freedom. And so the food, the thoughts, the actions are all in alignment. And when that happens, then our body is a field of celebration. And when we meditate, our mind is at peace. It's much quieter. So I think I'll stop here and I'll close with a short piece of original piano music. And I'd like again to dedicate this music to the healing of all of our relations, to the beautiful country of Taiwan, the land and the people and the spirit that I feel always when I think of the Formosa and the ocean and the jewel there. And so grateful that we're on this planet together and that we're able to work together to help build a world of kindness and compassion for all beings. So this is the underlying teaching of holistic health through vegan living. It's really nothing exotic. It's very natural. And when we come back to our true nature, we realize that there's one life living through all of us. This is a short piece of original music inspired by Taiwan. Again, enjoy. Okay, well, thank you very much. Let's go forth and multiply this message to the benefit of all beings. Thank you.
哇哦！让我们再一次的欢迎塔托博士回到直播的线上。大家刚才跟着博士一起见闻，是否跟我一样感到怦然心动，甚至想要采取行动呢？我想要再一次提醒各位听众或观众，你可以随时把你的视频打开，因为我们会将您的画面，传送到塔托博士那边，会看得到大家。Dr. Tuttle, thank you for your insightful and heartfelt
what was that?
presentation. Can you hear me? Thank you for your
Yes.
insightful and heartfelt presentation. Would you like to say something to the audience as a greeting?
Thank you so much, Ruby and Gordon, and thank you everyone in Taiwan here for being the message and for being interested in compassion and healthy living. I think there's nothing more important now than that, so thank you.
谢谢在场各位的观众，谢谢两位主持人，在这个时候呢，能够将慈悲甚至友善的讯息带到全世界，是一个最关键的时刻。Do you have anything more to say? OK， 所以刚才呢，我们在影片中有看到塔托博士提到呼吸是我们跟大自然最深层的连结，所以在我们正式开始 Q&A 疑答的这个环节之前，我想要代替大家邀请塔托博士带领我们进行一场呼吸觉知的静心练习。Dr. Tuttle, in the video we just watched now, actually you mentioned our breath is the deepest connection with the nature. So would you mind leading us a very brief breathing awareness meditation for us to take home and practice a bit?
Great. Okay, let's do a short breath meditation on the 4 viharas, or the 4 infinite dimensions of our true home.
好，现在我邀请各位把你的坐姿安放好。塔托博士要带领我们一个跟4无量心有关的呼吸觉知进行练习。
So first we begin by inhaling
吸气，
and connecting with our breath.
吸气，跟你的呼吸连结。
And with every inhalation, we invoke the feeling of loving kindness.
在每一次吸气的时候，将你的慈心灌注。
And when we exhale, we radiate loving kindness in every direction.
当你呼气的时候，将这个慈心散发到4处。
And with the next breath, when we inhale, we invoke the feeling of compassion.
在下一个吸气，我们邀请你召唤悲心。
And when we exhale, we send this feeling of compassion in all directions.
在我们呼气的时候，将这个慈悲的能量散发到4处。
And then the third one is joy. So when we inhale, we invoke the feeling of joy.
第3个，当我们下一次吸气的时候，召唤喜乐的心。
And when we exhale, we send a feeling of joy out into the world, so the whole world is filled with joy.
当我们呼气的时候，我们将这个喜乐的能量送到全世界各地，让全世界的万物都感觉到这份喜乐。
And then finally, as we breathe, we invoke the feeling of peace and harmony with every inhalation.
在下一个吸气的时候，你感受到一个非常明显的舍的心情，和平的心。
And when we exhale, we radiate peace to all human beings and to all living beings.
当你呼气的时候，将这个舍心、这个和平的心散发到所有的众生万物。
We see the whole earth now bathed in the light of peace.
现在我们观想整个地球沐浴在一个极尽和平的状态。
Inhaling and radiating love.
吸气的时候散发着爱，
Inhaling and radiating compassion.
下一次吸气的时候散发着悲，
Inhaling and radiating joy.
下一个吸气的时候散发着喜，
Inhaling and radiating peace.
下一个吸气散发着舍，也就是平等的心。
Abiding in our true home of love.
让我们安住在我们的心家，爱的家。
Abiding in our true home of compassion.
让我们安住在悲心的家，
Abiding in joy.
让我们安住在喜乐的家，
Abiding in peace.
让我们安住在和平平等的家。
So we just breathe together one more time. Love.
我们一起再顺着这个呼吸的律动，慈、
Compassion.
悲、
Joy.
喜
And peace.
以及和平。
And this is a meditation that we can do anytime, either sitting or when we're standing in line at the post office. We can always send love, compassion, joy, and peace to those around us.
这个是一个平常我们都可以做的静心或禅修的练习，不管你是采取坐姿，或是在等着在邮局前面在排队的时候，你都可以随时随地的将慈悲喜舍的意念送给众生。
谢谢, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tuttle. Now we officially commence the Q&A session. Gordon, 麻烦你。
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tuttle, providing this live Q&A. So, 谢谢塔托博士帮我们提供 Q&A 啊。如果各位听众有问题想发问的话，你可以留在留言区，或者在聊天室里头。那首先呢，我就代表这个提问的问题呢，来问第一个问题。那第一个问题呢，有同学问说，摄取太多的植物性蛋白会不会影响身体健康？Dr. Tuttle, the first question is, will it cause any adverse effect on health if taking too much plant-based protein?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I think plant-based protein is much less of a problem than animal-based protein. But like I said also in my talk earlier, we don't need to eat too much plant-based protein either. Like a lot of people eat a lot of vegan burgers or vegan cheese. That's very processed. It's not very healthy. So more simple foods is healthier.
事实上呢，植物性的蛋白呢，它产生的问题呢是远低于动物性的蛋白。不过，就像我刚刚在演讲中有提到的，摄取过多的植物性蛋白也是不必要的，因为过多的植物性蛋白通常都是加工而来的。譬如说，你吃了一个 vegan 的汉堡，然后里面有很多的 vegan 的 cheese。事实上呢，要保持健康的话，越简单的食物是越好。
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle. The second question is, in your speech, you mentioned to take a large portion of raw food. Is this referring to salad or something like that? Is there any parasite issue concerned or any possible adverse effect on this? 塔罗博士在你的演讲中提到可以用大量的生食，是指生菜沙拉之类的吗？会不会容易产生寄生虫的问题？对人体产生伤害呢？ Please, Dr. Tuttle.
Yes, right. So I think it's a good idea to have, like you say, salads and uncooked foods. It's good to wash them well, and it's important that they be organic if possible.
事实上呢，您刚刚讲的没有错。其实，如果讲到生食的话，沙拉是一个非常好的选择，也就是未经烹煮。那当然喽，你就要洗得非常非常的干净。那我个人是建议你，就是越有机越好，尽量用有机的食材。
But I think also it's very healthy to eat cooked food also. Cooked vegan food like grains, potatoes, vegetables. These are all very healthy, but some raw foods is always good to add in. Vegetables and fruits, some nuts or seeds, maybe some sprouts. We have those here in the United States, and I think they're healthy also. You have them.
但是也不是说烹煮就不好，其实烹煮的非常好的纯植物饮食也是非常好的，譬如说谷类啊、蔬菜啊，其实是非常好。只是我个人建议说，你可以在饮食当中增加一点生菜的比例。那生菜的比例呢，包括你的蔬果、蔬菜、水果，那坚果也很好，种子也很好。像在美国，我们两个就蛮常使用芽菜类的，事实上都会为你的饮食增添风味。
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle. Next question is, in your 50 years of vegan life, what makes you body and soul feel happier and healthier? 在您50年的这个吃素的生涯，您的身心为什么觉得会越来越健康呢？
Well, I think being a vegan, not eating any meat or dairy products or eggs is a wonderful foundation for happiness. I think that's the most important thing, and then combining that with meditation and with connecting with nature is very important.
事实上呢，本身身为一个纯素生活者，也就是去肉蛋奶。就是维持安乐、维持快乐一个非常重要的基本的条件。当然喽，我还建议你加上时时的禅修以及适时的跟大自然产生连结，我会这样子的推荐你。
And then also, just want to add to that two more things that I think are very important. One is to have a purpose in life that we feel is a very deep and satisfying mission to help maybe spread more compassion in the world, something like that. And then the second thing is relationships. So having a deep purpose and then relationships that are harmonious and being as much as possible loving with other people so that we're in harmonious relationships.
那我还想要补充2个点哦，对于你的这个保持安乐、保持快乐。第一个就是你的人生的志业，如果你在生命中能够有一个目标，就像一个使命，譬如说带着悲心去帮助别人，就是一个很好的使命。再加上如果你能够跟他人、跟你亲近的人都保持一个良好的关系，你总是带着爱、带着善。带着和谐跟周遭的事物相处，我想也是一个非常好的良药。
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle. Some of our students really like your music, especially you compose for Taiwan. And can we take this moment to listen a bit about some of your music to share with our student?
中文。
谢谢塔托博士，因为我们有些学员非常喜欢 您的音乐，尤其是为台湾而做的曲子，您是否现在可以为我们再弹一首简短的曲子呢？谢谢。
Okay, thank you. I'll play a short piece here. I'm sitting at the piano, and this is a piece, yes, inspired by the beauty of Asia, of Taiwan, and it's called Song of the Truth Field. And so enjoy.
好，那的确可以的。我刚好就坐在钢琴的前面。那这首歌的确，这首曲子的确是受到亚洲跟台湾的启发跟鼓舞。它叫做《真理之光》，希望你能够享受。
Shay, thank you. That's on an album called Islands of Light, if you want to listen to that one. It's called Song of the Truth.
这首歌事实上也出在塔托博士的《岛屿之光》的电子的专辑里面，它叫做《真理之光》。
谢谢塔托博士 ，Thanks, Dr. Tuttle. And now we have the question coming from one of the student, Dr. Tuttle. Do you consider cultivated meat part of a solution to help carnivore becoming a vegan? 塔托博士，请问你那个人造的这个肉是不是一个解决方案，让吃肉的人能够转成纯素者呢？
Okay, that's a very good question. Do I think that lab-grown meat is a solution? And I'm not really very enthusiastic about lab-grown meat because I think it still gives this idea of eating meat, eating the flesh of animals. It's taking technology and making the flesh of animals. So I think it's better
to just eat the plants directly, like rice and tofu and vegetables, and encourage people to do it that way.
首先呢，要大致上的来说的话，我个人呢并不是很支持，或是说很热衷于这个，因为透过实验室所产生的这些肉，因为它难免会带来一个概念，就是我们是需要动物的肉，我们是需要动物的肉的这个事情。那特别是它是透过特殊的技术来让我们有这个肉的产生。如果要我说的话呢，当然就是直接摄取植物，它是最棒的，包括米啊、豆腐啊、甚至的等等的蔬菜水果都是非常好的。
And also, these foods are not healthy. They have a lot of chemicals and other substances that maybe are not healthy and fat, and they come from factories, gigantic, large factories. And I think in the long run, it's better to eat food that's grown in nature.
那事实上，在健康方面，我也有一点点的疑虑，因为毕竟它有一些化学的物质或是一些其他的添加物。那毕竟它也是通过工厂大量制造出来的，所以长期来说呢，我还是非常鼓励透过纯植物的饮食。
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle. One question comes in says we know the disaster in this world. A lot of them are related with violence, and now many governments are not relinquish the recommendation of meat, dairy, and egg. Do you have any suggestion on that? 中文是我们知道现在所有的灾难是跟暴力饮食有密切关系，源头是各国政府官员的饮食指南，仍未放弃肉蛋奶饮食的指导。博士，请问你有什么高见呢？
Yes, that's a very good question. Governments around the world are under a lot of pressure from large corporations to encourage people to eat dairy products. But it's not healthy for people, and it's not healthy for the environment. Causes a lot of environmental devastation, and there's a lot of cruelty involved in killing the calves and stealing the milk. So I think it's important for people to get informed and not go along with those recommendations, because in the long run the governments will change. But sometimes we, the people, have to lead the way. We have to encourage them to promote organic and plant-based vegan ways of eating and show that it's very healthy.
事实上呢，我必须说，政府不管是哪一个国家的政府，它其实是都备受压力的。受到什么压力呢？都是一些大的财团的压力。所以这些指南呢，其实是不但是不健康，甚至对于环境有破坏性的影响，更不用说它有一些残酷的因素牵涉在里面。他杀了，譬如说吧，以酪农业的话，他杀了这些牛，然后呢偷了他们的牛奶。因此，我认为每一个人都有知情权。也就是说，长期来讲，政府还是会改变的，但是领头的必须是每一个人民。我们就吃得健康，多吃一些植物性的饮食，然后带头展示给他们看，说我们是非常棒的一群人。
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle. Next question is about when you harvest the vegetable, in about 30 minutes, the nutrition will gradually reduced. So is imported vegetable and or food considered less nutritious than the local one? 有人问说，当采摘食物的时候，30分钟之后就会渐渐失去营养，所以进口的食物是不是比较不营养呢？
Yes, that's another good question. The best thing is if you can have your own garden, if you can grow your food yourself, and then you can go out and pick it and eat it right away.
And that's what we're doing now here in Northern California. Madeline and I work in the garden every afternoon, and we have many vegetables and fruits and squashes and things that we can eat right away. That's the best, if possible.
这是另外一个非常非常棒的提问哦，感谢这个学员哦。其实最棒的哦，事实上是能够拥有自己的菜园啊，现采现吃啦。其实每一个下午呢，我跟我的太太 Madeline 呢都在采收，我们就是采收那些蔬菜啊、水果啊、瓜类，然后我们采了就吃了。
And then if not,If you can support local organic farmers and local organic food stores, the food does lose some nutrient value, but it still has a lot. It's still good, so I wouldn't worry. The main thing is to eat the food as fresh as you can, but also eat it with love and appreciation as a meditation.A lot of the food gets more value into our body when we're eating in a conscious, mindful way. We get more of the nutrients that way, and chew it very well and eat slowly.
那事实上，在下一个选择方案呢，当然就是跟当地的有机的小农或是当地的有机商店来采买，的确多多少少营养价值会流失，但是我不会太担心，营养价值还是非常高的。不过我想要提醒各位，就是你能够尽可能的新鲜的吃。当你在吃的时候呢，可否带着一个感恩、感激跟爱的心，把它当成禅修一般的来吃？你这样子吃的话，吃进去身体系统的营养价值会比较高。每当我们有觉知的进食的时候，还有慢慢的吃，把它当成冥想的话，就会带给自己更多的营养，更多的爱。
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle. Very interesting that one member of us really like to see your gardening or your orchard, because he's wondering how can you manage such a big orchard to have so many kind of plants over there. Can you show us a little bit about your gardening or food forest?
中文。
我们有会员对很想看见你的食物的森林哦，你怎么有办法去照顾这么多的这个食物跟植物呢？谢谢。
Let's see. I'll see. This is something I wasn't really sure. Can I share my screen? I'll try here. Let's see.
达托博士可以分享影片吗？他会试试看。他是联席主持人吗
？Yes, I can see you.
有看到了，
yes.
大家有看到。
That's your orchard, right?
That's some oranges. You know, I didn't prepare anything, so.
我并没有事先准备哈，这个就是我的橘子园呐。那这个呢？大家有看到啊
？This is just about 3 weeks ago, I guess.
这个是3个礼拜前的样貌。
That's the compost tea.
这个是我们都透过化肥回收的，
然
后做成一个。
No, and these are the sprouts.
这个就是我刚刚说的豆芽。
So, I think that's all the pictures I have right now.
我并没有准备太多哈，不过的确我们有这个菜园的样貌跟大家分享了一下。
This is
哎呀，秘密都出来了！哇哇哇！现场的声音非常的开心。哇，这是 Madeline。
Yeah, that's Madeline. Yeah. I'm showing these pictures. There you are.
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle, for showing us such a wonderful daily life picture. I consider you are a farmer in that sense.
Yeah. Madeline, we want to say hi to you. 我们跟 Madeline 也挥挥手吧。We just saw Madeline here. Do you want to wave to? Yeah,
Madeline, you want to wave?
Wave to everybody. 我们请我们大家跟 Madeline 也挥挥手好吗？她是背后最重要的一个推手。
Hi, Madeline.
Hi.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question is asking whether honey is considered vegan or vegetarian. So, what's your opinion for honey? 下一个问题是有人问蜂蜜，它是属于素食的一种吗？请问您的意见是？
Yeah, that's another good question. And the problem with honey is that it's basically stealing the honey from the bees. The bees make the honey in order to feed themselves in the winter when it's cold. And so the beekeepers have to steal the honey and then give the bees usually sugar water or something. And very often they kill all the bees as well. So it's breaking the precepts, the Buddhist precepts of killing and stealing, and it's not necessary.
说到蜂蜜的话，这也是另外一个非常重要的议题哦。事实上，我们是通过偷取蜂的这个蜜来取得蜂蜜嘛。那事实上的这个养蜂人呢，他们其实在养蜂的过程当中，他们会用糖水来喂养。事实上，这些蜜蜂最后是被杀掉的。所以严格来讲，它是违反了我们戒条里面说的杀以及偷窃。
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle. Next question is about aquaponic agriculture. In Ayurvedic saying, it's not healthy. So, what do you think about aquaponic agriculture? 塔罗博士，水耕食物在阿育吠陀的说法对身体是不好的。您对水耕食物的想法是什么呢？
Yes, well, aquaponics is farming fish in water, either in large pools or in the ocean offshore. And in all cases, it's unhealthy and harmful to the fish because the fish are kept in prisons. And in many cases, the fish suffer terribly because they're confined, they're swimming in very toxic waters, they're given lots of drugs. So I think aquaponics, as it's practiced now, is not a good idea. It's causing a lot of suffering, environmental devastation, and disease in humans.
透过这个鱼菜共生的这个水耕方式呢，在我的角度里面呢，是一个不是非常好的一个方式，因为这些鱼呢，要么就豢养在一个很大的养殖场，不然就是在岸边。那相对的不健康，不健康的原因是，首先这些鱼呢是很痛苦的，它们是被拘禁在一个范围里面。那不但是被囚禁了，而且它们被喂养的水呢，其实是很毒的，它都必须要施加一些化学药剂。所以我认为这样的惯行的方式呢，不是一个很好的观念，因为对于环境的破坏，以及对于我们自己的健康都不是非常好。
Dr. Tuttle, your speech is very insightful. Madeline, I guess it's your spouse. Both of you are vegans. My question is, what if my spouse or other family members criticize my concept of being vegan and consider me as a troublemaker? What am I supposed to do? 塔罗博士，我猜想你跟你 Madeline 都是个 vegan， 可是假设我的配偶或我的亲戚只有我是 vegan， 所以他们一直在批评我说我是麻烦制造者，我该怎么办呢？
Thank you. That's a very good question, and this happens a lot when one person is a vegan and the partner or spouse is not. And if you're a vegan, I think just do the best you can, understanding that it's not possible to change other people. They have to decide on their own, but you can be a good example and try to embody what veganism is, which is loving kindness, and maybe prepare vegan foods in the house for you and your partner, and they can learn how delicious it is. And find ways to help educate them, if possible, through videos or just discussions or reading books. I think many people have gone vegan reading the World Peace Diet and reading it to their husband or wife, and then they both go vegan. It's possible.
这个问题问得非常的好，而且很典型的、很普遍的问题哈。通常自己是吃素或是 vegan， 然后你的伴侣或是伙伴不是 vegan。那我的建议就是，你尽可能的就是以身作则嘛。你必须要先理解到，改变别人是不太可能的啊。所以你如果自己先献出一个典范，先示现自己是充满了爱与慈悲。然后呢，还有一个小方法，就是你可以在家里准备一些美味的素食的食物给他吃。那慢慢他就会觉得，哦，原来这个东西那么好吃。那适时的找到一些教育的机会当我说教育的机会的时候，譬如说不经意的就给他看了一个袋子啦，或是说有一些读书会邀请他参加啦，或是给他一些书事实上呢，有很多人听说是读了我的和平饮食，然后分享给他的伴侣看，然后渐渐的两位都成为了纯素者。
Also, you try not to be too impatient, because sometimes it takes a few years even. So you have to be patient and just do your best.
然后我要提醒各位不要太没有耐性。有时候一个转化呢是要好几年的，我只能说你要尽一己之力。
谢谢各位同学的发问主办单位有提醒说，因为有限的时间，我们没有办法问所有的问题。可是后面我们还有8堂后续的课。相关的课，各位可以提更多的问题，或者我们的这个主办单位呢，科研新生活呢，会在留言板上跟各位答复跟回复。Okay, I just talking about some logistics issue. Dr. Tuttle, next question is about the intaking of like garlic, onion. Some of the plants are considered not pure vegetarian in Buddhism.What do you think about that, and what's the adverse effect on these plants on your health? 塔罗博士想请问你关于五辛的看法。请问五辛呢，在佛教的五辛是不吃的，它对于身体有什么不好的影响呢？请问你的看法。
Yes, that's a very big controversy, especially here in the United States and in Europe.I think many places, because garlic and onions are very often considered by many people who are into health as being the healthiest of all vegetables, garlic and onions and leeks. And so sometimes when we go to a healing center, like there's one in Florida where people come to heal cancer and diabetes, and they eat a lot of garlic and they say it's very healing. But on the other hand, in the Buddhist tradition and in some other traditions in India, the teaching is that these are not healthy, especially on a path of meditation, because they're overly stimulating. And if we're trying to quiet our mind and focus our energy on meditation, then it's better to avoid garlic and onions and leeks, to have a more peaceful and harmonious mind. And so Madeline and I, we eat very little onion and garlic because we are in a meditative lifestyle. So I think it's a good idea if you're doing a lot of meditation, maybe to not eat much garlic and onion.
这个问题非常的大，也非常的有一点占有争议性哦。特别是在欧洲、美国这些国家，很典型的哦，我们是把蒜啊、洋葱啊，甚至大蒜呢，把它视为是所有的蔬菜里面最健康的食物之一哦。事实上，我们在譬如说佛罗里达有一些疗愈中心，他们是专门疗愈一些癌症、糖尿病病患，他们事实上是使用相当大量的大蒜啊、蒜、洋葱来做疗愈的食物。不过，从另外一个角度来说，不管是佛教的传统，或是印度某一些宗教的传统呢，的确他们的教导里面说，在禅修之道里面呢，他们是不使用五辛的，因为五辛是过度的刺激。那通常禅修呢，你必须要让你的心安静，那要帮你的能量专注在禅修上，所以他就是希望你避免五辛，来让你的心保持一个安静。那以我跟我的太太 Madeline 来说的话，我们的确相对这些五辛是用的比较少，因为禅修是我们生活中非常大的一部分，所以我只是想要提醒各位，在你的禅修的生活状态里面，要稍微减少一下五辛的用量。
Dr. Tuttle, what you're thinking about biofuel, like a biogasoline and biodiesel, which are using crops to convert it to energy? What do you think about that? 塔洛博士，请问你对于生质能源的想法是什么？因为他们把食物变成能源，请问可以给我们一些想法吗？谢谢。
Oh yeah, that's another good question. You know, I personally, from the research I've done, I don't think it's a good idea because we're growing all these grains and then harvesting them and using the oil or the fuel that we get from that by fermentation for cars and so forth. And it's a very wasteful way of getting fuel. It seems to me it's very harmful to ecosystems. You have a lot of runoff and pollution of the water and the air and the destruction of the soil, killing of insects and animals in agriculture. And they're even using palm oil from the islands of the Pacific, which is cutting down and destroying the habitat for many animals like orangutans. So I think it's not a good idea, really. We shouldn't be doing that.
大致上来说呢，我个人是不赞成这样的一个生物能源的截取的方法，因为我们要种植大量的谷物，然后收成之后呢，透过发酵的过程，让它产生出石油或是其他的燃料，供应给汽车用。那这个简直是一个非常浪费能源的一个系统。因为这些车子、这些工具呢，事实上会对我们的生态产生很多有害的物质，譬如说不管是空气污染啊，或是土壤的染污，或是在农业当中这些生物啊、昆虫都会受到伤害。举例来说，在太平洋岛有这个大量种植了我们说的棕榈树。那棕榈树事实上是大量的破坏了生态，很多快要濒临绝种的生物呢，也破坏了它们的栖息地。所以简单来说，我是不赞成的。
Dr. Tuttle, if we're using humane way or eco-friendly way to obtain dairy product or egg, do you think it can be considered? What's the effect on that? 塔多博士，请问我们如果用比较人道或者环保的方式取得蛋跟奶的话，那这是有帮助的吗？您的看法是什么呢？
Right. Well, that's another very interesting question, but actually it's not possible because all of the cows and the chickens to make eggs and dairy products, they have to eat. And so you have to grow food to feed them, and it takes a lot of food, especially, of course, for cows. And then you're always going to be killing the offspring. So you have to have sexual abuse of the cows, you have to impregnate them against their will, and you have to steal their babies, steal their milk. Same thing with stealing the eggs of the chickens. You have to separate the roosters from the chickens, typically. So it's from an ethical point of view, there's no way to do it without harming them, and you can't keep feeding all the babies that would be born on a dairy, for example. It's impossible. People have tried doing it, but it never works. You can't do it because there's just too many babies to keep all that milk flowing. It's not possible.
这个问题相当有趣哦。不过我可以简单的跟各位回答，这个是不可能的哈，不可能有这个道德友善的这个产物。原因是因为呢，第一点，你还是要种植大量的食物或饲料来喂养这些牛或是鸡。那他们所需要的这些饲料呢，是非常非常浪费能源。那第二个当然是参与了这个杀戮射杀。那我们杀了他们的下一代。我们在杀了下一代之前呢，事实上是先通过非人道的方式、暴力的方式，性暴力，然后再加上偷取，不管是蛋啊或是奶。那有一个很大的问题就是这些小公鸡，因为它一出生呢就必须被分开。在伦理上来说的话呢，这是参与了很大的杀戮。因为其实有人试过说好，那所有的小公鸡都留下来，不要杀吧，就直接让他们活着。可是事实上是不可能的，这些公鸡真的太多了，他们必须要用杀掉这些公鸡的方式来处理这个蛋液所剩下来的这些没有价值的东西。
Dr. Tuttle, you mentioned about the veganism. It's a modern new word from an ancient spiritual teaching at the very heart of the Buddhist teaching, ahimsa, or nonviolence. However, is veganism in line with the spiritual teaching of Christianity or against it? 塔罗博士，您提到纯素理念是现代的新名词。源自于古老的灵性教诲，它是佛法的核心精神 ahimsa 或者非暴力的观念。然而，纯素理念和基督教的核心精神是相同的吗？还是相违的？
Thank you. That's a very good question. Yes, veganism is also in line with the teachings of Christianity, because the whole teaching of Christianity is to love God. And to love God, we have to love God's creation. And God's creation is this beautiful earth and all the animals. And so it doesn't make any sense, if we love God, that we would enslave and abuse and kill and harm unnecessarily God's creation. That would be attacking God, in a sense, directly. So Jesus and all the great sages and saints of Christianity have always agreed that we should have compassion for other human beings and for all living beings. So I think it's the highest teaching really in Christianity would be to go vegan.
这个问题也是问得非常非常的棒哦。的确 ，veganism 这个字呢，纯素主义呢，事实上，我认为是跟基督教的教义是相符的。因为在基督教的教义很重要的一点是钟爱上帝，钟爱自己的上帝。那你既然钟爱上帝的话，你爱上帝，你当然是会爱上帝的产物。上帝的产物包括地球，包括人类，包括万物众生。所以，如果你透过了一些行为，譬如说去虐杀、去暴力、去施暴、去伤害了上帝的产物，上帝的所创造的一切，这是不合理的。那就好像是有点像你攻击了上帝一般。所以，不管是耶稣或是在基督教里面其他的圣人，他都是他的最高宗旨，都希望能够以慈悲看待人类，看待众生。
因为时间的关系我们现在就问塔托博士最后一题。那各位学员可以在后续的8堂课里头，可以请你继续参加或者发问问题。The last question, Dr. Tuttle, is the plants, vegetable and fruits grown by greenhouse, are they the same nutrition level with those plants and vegetables grown by natural sunlight? 塔托博士，请问 温室生产的蔬果跟全日照蔬果的营养价值相同吗？
Yes, a very good question. You know, my wife Madeline is very strong in her belief that growing food in nature in harmony with the sun and outside is the best way. And she is a very enthusiastic farmer and gardener and has done a lot of research into that. And also, from the research I've done as well, I think that from a spiritual point of view, when we have trees that make fruits and vegetables and grains outside in the sun, especially when it's organic, so the soil is healthy, then they're getting information from the sun, they're getting nutrients from the sun. So I think that's the best. I mean, if it's possible to grow it outside, you're going to have more life force, more chi, energy in the food. And organic, of course, is much better because there's more vitamins and minerals and so forth. But I think, yes, it's much better to grow in the real soil, in the sun, and as nature always did. But that's a wonderful way to get food.
谢谢这个提问哦。相较来说，我还是认为全日照的方式是最佳的。事实上 ，Madeline 呢，我的太太呢，她是一个忠诚的奉行者。她呢，相信透过日晒，透过在户外跟大自然连接所种出来的任何的植物都是最理想、最棒的。她个人以及我自己也做过了很多的实验，做过的很多的研究，来佐证这个看法。那从灵性修行的角度的话呢，事实上，你透过在户外，透过树啊，树就长出水果啊，然后蔬菜啊、谷类，透过它原本的土、原本的植物长出来，它当然会吸取了太阳的资讯，也吸取了太阳的营养。所以呢，相较起来呢，在食物里面的生命能量，也就是我们说的气，会不一样，特别是有机的耕作。有机的耕作的话，不管是矿物质啊，或是营养、其他的维他命都会不一样。所以简单来讲，差距是在这真正的土、真正的太阳，它会相符于大自然，它的产物的能量就不一样。
And just one more quick thing, can I say?
Sure.
Yeah, we have a YouTube channel with some of our gardening videos in our food forest and Madeline's Intuitive Kitchen. And in the garden, it's like a community of plants, of trees, of birds and insects, and they all work together. And it's really beautiful to walk through that and feel all the love that we can give, and it comes back. And I think that's something that's important to remember, that we can live in harmony with nature in a way that is feeding us with foods that give us a lot of energy and healing.
So would you give us the YouTube link and the information that we can pass to
Okay.
them? Okay.
It's just Will Tuttle on YouTube, but yeah.
OK。那塔托博士还想要补充一点哦，他跟他太太所用的一些社交媒体的资讯哈，像 YouTube 有一个叫做直觉厨房，而且他们也常常的把他在菜园里面的收成呢，把它资讯分享出来。他觉得呢，这个森林呢就很像一个社群，是充满了鸟树花草的社群。当他们走在这个森林里面的时候，他感觉到了这种我怎么付出的就怎么回报的这种感觉，因为我种养了他们，他们回报我是更好的爱、更好的营养以及和谐。所以这种和谐是透过我自己耕种、自己喂养自己而来的。那我刚刚有请他把这个连结呢，能够给到我们，我们也可以分享给各位学员。
谢谢塔托博士的这个 Q&A 的时间。那今天因为时间的关系，那我们就 Q&A 进行到这里。 如果各位学员呢，对于塔托博士的音乐有兴趣的话，
还没
10大音乐已经把塔托博士的专辑在动物在唱歌Animal Songs 的 APP 已经放在这个连结上面。那各位可以在Zoom 或者 YouTube 的这个留言区可以看到这样的连结。各位有兴趣的话，可以上网参加选购。谢谢。
谢谢各位今天的活动接近了尾声，非常感谢，也非常感动塔托先生今天全方位的分享。他的文思清楚，他的目标坚定，但是语调如云一般的柔和。相信各位跟我一样都有很多的收获。在他来台，我担任他的口译员这么多年的时间里面，他说过的一些话让我觉得很受用。这些话呢，也在他的《和平饮食》一书当中有提过。他说当你有觉知的、有意识的选择饮食，甚至成为一个 vegan， 也不过是一个开始，是一场慈悲革命的起点。也许我们还无法像远古的师长站在制高点看到全貌，但只要我们能够尽一己之力，就能够改变我们观待周遭人事物的角度。毕竟万物生生不息，你只要一个小小的改变或是选择，就能够改变，就能够攸关于全世界、全球的生态、自己的健康以及亲友的安乐。那现在我想要念一段塔托博士在影片当中讲的话，当作今天蔬食新力量第1集活动的结语。感恩有此珍贵的机会，向此生如此难得的人生致谢，并欢庆自己的生命，在这美丽富饶的星球，每天学习跟成长，贡献自己独特的一片拼图，把这份独特的礼物贡献给社会，为众生创造一个更慈悲、永续、自由和富足的生活。Dr. Tuttle, please.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Giving thanks for our precious opportunity that we have this human life, this human birth, for the opportunity to celebrate our lives on this beautiful and abundant planet, and to every day learn and grow and contribute our unique piece of the puzzle that we have, unique gifts that we can bring to our society, and to help create a more compassionate and sustainable and free and abundant life for all living beings.
Thank you, Dr. Tuttle. 我会再占用各位学员几分钟的时间，不过让我们利用这个机会，好好的跟塔托博士说 goodbye。 Thank you, Dr. Tuttle. They
Thank
are all
you.
waving
Bye-bye.
goodbye to you. Hope to see you next time in person.
Yes, I hope so.
谢谢
Thank
塔托
you.
博士，
Thank you, everyone.
谢谢各位，塔托博
谢
士
谢
很开心，谢谢各位。
Adeline. 谢谢。
Thank you。
那接下来呢，我们也会有一系列的午休快充站的课程啊。我们跟 Madeline say goodbye， 大家要记得追踪一下她的网站。拜
拜。
那这个午休快充站的课程呢，就如同刚刚 Gordon 所说的，是今天活动的延伸。那你只要扫 QR code，可以了解更多哦。在留言区或是在聊天室也可以看到。那6月12号开始，我们会有一系列的叫书醒系列，主讲者呢是 Dr. Scott Stoll， 他所主讲的专题是逆转疾病的全植物、纯植物的饮食。那让我们一起看一下一个1分钟的影片。
Hi, I'm Dr. Scott Stoll, co-founder of the Plant Nutrition Project, and it's my sincere honor to be presenting a keynote speech on June 12th titled Disease Reversal Hope, Optimizing Disease Prevention and Reversal Through a Whole Food Plant-Based Diet. You see, for more than 20 years, I have researched disease prevention and reversal, and I have discovered that the power of food, the power of our plate, is more powerful than we might recognize. In fact, our food can not only prevent disease, but in many cases, reverse the diseases that are affecting billions of people around the world. Diseases like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even autoimmune diseases can be suspended and reversed by changing what we put on our plate. I hope you can join me on June 12th. The Bliss and Wisdom group has all the information attached to this video. So please scan the QR code or click the link for more information. I'll look forward to seeing you on June 12th.
我个人也是非常的期待能够看到这场演讲，因为这位博士他是第一次在亚洲公开的演讲，而且是非常精彩的内容。所以在这个疫情的期间呢，其实非常开心各位能够报名1场就能够听到8场。所以6月12号以后一样，我们报名了1场书醒系列，一样可以听到8场的午休快充站的节目哦。那科园新生活，期待下次跟你见面。我是 Ruby，
我是 Gordon，
拜拜，
拜拜。